Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. The Minnesota Twins are looking forward to another great season in 2023, led by the return of All-Stars Carlos Correa and Brian Buxton. With the return of numerous players who were injured in 2022 and some new acquisitions, another division crown and a return to the World Series are in their sights. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Access to Democracy. I'm Steve Francisco, your host. It's my pleasure to welcome to our studio today a very special guest. Yakov Gradinar is the co-founder and the chief medical officer of the Protez Foundation, located right here in Minnesota. The Protez Foundation provides prosthetics and orthotics for wounded Ukrainian soldiers, civilians, and children who have been wounded in the war, Russia's war against Ukraine. Yakov, welcome to Access to Democracy.
Steve, thank you for having me.
I first learned about the Protez Foundation watching a report on WCCO TV News in which you were featured. I found it to be a very compelling story about the Protez Foundation. Tell us what prompted you to start the foundation.
As always, I have opportunity. I want to thank you and thank American government, Americans, for building great country where we as immigrants can come and not only live better life and have great opportunities, but we can help our home country. And so when we started, we were thinking what we can do, how we can help, because everybody's lost. War suddenly interrupted our normal daily life. And we thought, let's do something that right here where we are, we can serve and help Ukraine. And having this awesome resource for abundance of resource with specialists, with donors, with facilities, with companies, we can help those wounded Ukrainians who lost their limbs. And with that, we started to register and started to roll to be able to serve.
And our viewers may detect that you don't necessarily have a Minnesotan accent, that you originally are from Ukraine, born and raised in Ukraine. Is that correct?
Correct. I was raised in Ukraine, and 16 years ago I came to United States, and I have 7 kids, and continuing my education here, and was become certified prosthetist orthotist. And being as Ukrainian, I was like, I'm gonna use what I know to help Ukrainians.
And the current project of the Protez Foundation, Prosthetics for Ukrainians, tell us more about specifically what this involves.
So when we were reasoning why we will bring people here, why we will drive them, get them, fly them half of the world here to get prosthetics, we saw that Ukrainian health system is super overwhelmed. And with that, we decided it's like, okay, we're gonna bring them here, give them state-of-art prosthetics, we're gonna bring them here to give them rehabilitation, and then give them a little bit break from sirens, give them break from that war set up life that they have right now with constant pressure, and start to unite us more, unite local Ukrainian diaspora and Americans. And as a part of that program, we are bringing them to different states as well. As we go more and more, we think that not prosthetics are supposed to be on first line, that moral, emotional support that we are providing with all Americans coming and stepping and saying thank you for your service, that becomes our first line of help, then prosthetics.
We should really underscore the point too that you mentioned the Ukrainian healthcare system and how, as good as it has been, it is simply overwhelmed by what has happened. That Vladimir Putin's war of terrorism against Ukraine is not only directed against the Ukrainian military, but horrific attacks, terrorist attacks against civilians, indiscriminate bombing that has killed men, women, and children, civilians who have lost limbs as well. So the Protez Foundation is offering hope and care to wounded Ukrainian soldiers, civilians, including children too, is that right?
Correct. So far we helped 64 people, 61 soldier, 2 kids, and 1 civilian. And one of 61 soldiers is 1 female. It's like, that hurts it's like, why? Why these young, strong people? Why these kids? Why these men and women are suffering? What for? We live in 21st century.
You've mentioned on your website that an estimated 1,500 soldiers and civilians in Ukraine are in need of prosthetic devices. I suspect that number has gone up since it was originally posted on your website. The number's growing. How long is the current waiting list for providing prosthetics to Ukrainians?
So it runs from like 3 months to 7 months, but we are ramping up and trying to do our best, not only here in the US, but also in Ukraine. We open office there where people that were fitted here, they can get service there. So we are not just fitting them and dropping them off. We are continuing to take care of them while Ukrainian health system is getting stronger and better and be able to serve. But still, these offense that they are planning this year, the number is going to grow even more.
And with the number growing and a long waiting list, you mentioned that you have an office in Ukraine. So how do you go about identifying the people that are going to be chosen to come to Minnesota to receive care?
So we're taking few simple steps. It's like if person is healed and going down the list, second, to have passport and to make sure that we have finances so we are providing appropriate prosthetic. And that we just going down the list.
So when a wounded Ukrainian comes to Minnesota to receive their prosthetic device, who provides the housing, the food, the shelter for them during their stay here? And how long is the typical visit to Minnesota?
So when Protez Foundation is providing all cost for visa, for flight, when they arrive here, we get them meet and greet in airport, and that very emotional moment where we meet them with bread and salt, which is welcoming sign for Ukrainians. Then we right away bring them to clinic where we start volume management and preparing them for prosthetics. Then we bring them to house where house was donated to us at no cost and for a year. And with that, it is so nice to see this people that they didn't know each other and they come together, they help each other, they care for each other. Then they coming every single day to clinic, food, housing service, delivery, all of this done by volunteers. We have over 100 volunteers that involved in our project, and with that, it's so awesome to see how community, Ukrainians and Americans are stepping up and helping.
Do these volunteers, for example, they come to the house where people are staying at and they volunteer to provide meals, to cook the meals for them, serve the meals,
Yes.
help with housekeeping, whatever needs to be
Yes,
done?
and they are also coming to clinic and just simple coming and greeting Ukrainian soldiers, and all that is touching for Ukrainians. It's like, who these are strangers? They don't know us, but they took their time out of day to come and visit us. Yesterday was grandma, probably 80 years old. She read article about us in World Magazine, and she came with that article with shaky hands, and I said, like, you are in my backyard. I just wanted to come and say thank you what you're doing.
Wow.
Simple, those gestures are making difference for these people.
Really wonderful. The story on WCCO where I first saw you, Yakov, we just met for the first time today, but I saw you in this interview, as I mentioned, on WCCO. And one of the people that you featured was a young Ukrainian soldier named Daniil. He was 20 years old. Tell us about his journey through the Protez Foundation and coming to Minnesota.
So he came to us. He lost his hand at first. Other hand is missing 4 fingers and both feet as well. When he came, he's 20 years old. He came to us and it's like, he's younger than 2 of my daughters. And with that, it's like, you haven't lived and you're already suffering. But with his courage, with his approach to his life, it's like, happen what happened, I will do my best.
And wasn't it the case that he was captured by Russian soldiers and told them, basically, shoot me in the head, I'm not going to talk to you? But the Russian soldiers actually empathized with him, provided him some medical care. He ended up back in Ukraine as a result of a prisoner swap, is that correct?
Correct.
And then Ukrainian soldiers performed further surgery, and then he came to Minnesota to the Protez Foundation.
Correct.
Tell us about Daniil's progress since. He's still in Minnesota, right?
Yes, because of complexity of his demand and his activity, we needed to change few check sockets, and he wants to run as well. So right now we are getting parts for running prosthetics. Plus, like us yesterday, he was rollerblading. He's using bike, and with that demand, we needed to keep him longer. But he's doing amazing things. He's actually helping and volunteering on our office as well. He was actually, because they are playing also a little volleyball in the office, we were afraid that they're gonna hit one fire hydrant. So he asked to go and help and put protection on. So he's very active.
It's really something. Well, we wish Daniil well. He has seen more in his young life than anybody should ever have to see or put up with. Remarkable story. So the prosthetics that you are able to give to people who come here for surgery, who are some of the hospitals that you're partnering with right now who actually perform these surgeries?
So normally we take Ukrainians when they are fully healed, but 3-4 of them actually came here, 4 of them that needed surgery revision for their residual limb, or they needed, it's called targeted muscle reinnervation surgery, and Dr. Geister in Hennepin Health System, she stepped up and started to encourage me. It's like, I can step up, I can help with that. And actually 3 of them got surgeries, and right now 4th one gonna be bilateral above the knee that has severe pain. So to answer your question, Hennepin Health Care stepped up, Allina, other hospitals like, okay, we can provide you x-ray, Mayo Clinic stepped up as well. So with that, it's like so awesome to hear and see how we interrupt our daily business and step up and do good things.
And we should mention too, the prosthetics themselves. Initially, you had a donation from Ottobock, which is a very famous prosthetics manufacturer based in Germany, but has had a presence here in Minnesota for many years.
Yep.
Right? And you work with Ottobock and other American manufacturers?
Yes, Protez as well, Oser, and Cascade, PAL, all of them step up to help us fill they all stepped up and give us discounts and trying to accommodate, because when they fly in, if I need something urgently, they will accommodate. It's so awesome to have this, to be surrounded by caring people that support you, and I can pass on that support.
I think this is something we should be very proud of as Minnesotans too, that we have healthcare institutions here that are renowned not only across America but around the world for the quality of care that they provide. And device manufacturers such as
Yes.
Ottobock and others here in the U.S.
I'm very blessed to be in the state, and as one of soldiers said, it's like cold but very welcoming Minnesota, and it's like, wow.
Cold weather, warm hearts, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Minnesota nice is really true.
So it is a combination then of both the Protez Foundation purchasing prosthetic devices, but also receiving in-kind donations from some of the manufacturers
It wouldn't be possible for us to do without those donors, small or big. It's all matters, and that's what makes it possible for us to continue providing.
And Yakov, give us an idea, what is the typical cost of prosthetic devices?
So we can, prosthetic devices are pretty expensive because it's not mass produced first, plus it's unique for
They
each
have to
patient.
be custom made, right, for the individual?
To individual,
Yeah.
yes. And plus there's different size of feet, different height, all that goes into, which makes it more broader variety that's supposed to be supplied. And with that, it drives cost up. But could be like from just part stocking. It can be for as simple as 2,000-3,000 for more simple, and can be all the way to 50,000-70,000 depending on prosthetic device. And all that means a lot. When people donate, we can provide, we can help, it's so nice to receive. Actually today we receive support from Direct Relief, and they are supporting us with grant, as well as like simple civilians sending us from their retirement funds. And it's like Fidelity check. It's like, initially I thought like, what that means? I know Fidelity is 401k, what about this? But people are donating from that. It's like, that just shows that people are with open hearts, making our global community even stronger and closer to support people of Ukraine.
We should say too to our viewers, I think, that when a person undergoes this surgery to be fitted for prosthetic foot, leg, arms, that this is a very difficult challenge for them in many ways, not just physically, but psychologically and emotionally. Can you address that issue too? Tell us about the role of physical therapists and occupational therapists in helping patients get to recovery.
So if we will picture a person who was capable to take care of himself, not only that, to go and defend own country, and suddenly from eyesight and being up, he's in a wheelchair. And looking up, being lost, being burdened for family, and all of that puts so much stress where strong men suddenly needed to be taken care of. That drives so much in your life, negative emotions. It's like, how long I can do this, what I'm capable, how I gonna support my family, how I gonna take my children. When one of soldiers said, like, would I be able to stand up and throw my son a little bit in the air? Because that's what he loved. And with that, it just gets you down so much. And one person can step up. Why we providing them like 3-4 weeks being here, that is approximate time when we can get person up in first, second day when they arrive, and then I let them loose first day when they literally can walk and step and do what they can, so they can reassure themselves, oh, I can be back on my feet, I can do stuff back. And then I trim down, it's like, okay, slow down, let's not get blisters. And for them being up, then it's like, oh, they prove to themselves that
it's
I'm
like a revelation to themselves.
Whole person. Yeah, light bulb moment that it's like, oh, I can be as a whole person.
We should mention that in the case of some of the Ukrainian soldiers that have received prosthetics here in Minnesota through the Protez Foundation, after they have received their prosthetics and follow-up care, they have chosen to return immediately to their homeland to continue the fight against Russia, which I think for many people it just boggles the mind how you can go through sustaining such horrific injuries and then get back in the fight. And why do they do that?
I still figuring it out, but what's interesting, when they are in front line, their brothers and sisters, they're defending their country, and they feel when they left front line that they betrayed theirs, and it's like that what in their mind, we want to go back, we want to support, we want to fight, because I have knowledge if I step down, somebody young and less experienced has to step up and put his life in danger. And I think with that in mind, they do their best to get. Some of them are not let go back, but most of them, they want it.
We referred earlier, we discussed Danil, the 20-year-old soldier that you're treating at Protez, and he said something very interesting, I thought, in his interview that was on WCCO. He mentioned that one of the things that motivated him to go on was he was thinking about his brother soldiers who were in heaven looking down on him and thought that they were looking over him. And when he thought of them, he said that gave him hope for his own future and to make the most of his life that he possibly could. So you're not only providing prosthetic devices to these wounded Ukrainian soldiers and civilians, but giving them a whole new lease on life, a new attitude that people change. They may not be able to do everything they could before they lost a limb, but they can do a lot more than perhaps they ever thought they could.
Yes, it's actually, I heard yesterday story that one of surgeons lost his arm, and he got prosthetic arm, and he went back to frontline and serving people, wounded people, just arriving and bring them even from frontline. And he shared with us, as soon as they see my prosthetic hand, there's eye light up. That is like, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. I think that with that in mind, with that's like, I'm not handicapped. You're handicapped as much you're handicapped in your mind. I think that gives them purpose. Oh, I can raise my children, I can have family, I can go back and be helpful in serving my country. And a lot of them go and train other soldiers if they cannot go to frontline. And with that in mind, I was like, wow, that what takes, that what soldiers are. They are wired up to defend us, and we take a lot of for granted here, having peaceful skies for us. We take a lot of for granted. When I went back to Ukraine, I started to question, like, is that wise? Oh, you have 7 children. Why you will risk your life? And then I started to be embarrassed, like, what about people at frontline? What about my parents lived and never left country? What about my 2 brothers and 2 sisters serving Ukrainians and helping out there? And I started to be embarrassed for myself. Why even that thought came to my mind? We take a lot of for granted.
I think you're right. I want to ask you real quickly, we're down to about the last 2 minutes of our time here today, Yakov. Tell us about the follow-up care that is being provided in Ukraine. You have gone back to Ukraine and are actually providing follow-up care for people that were originally treated here in Minnesota. Tell us briefly about that.
So we to be able to serve those people who received care, we thought wouldn't be good if we will just drop them off. So we got them to the open office in Western Ukraine, and it actually was close to date of a 1-year anniversary Putin invading is Ukraine. And what was interesting for us, it was so nice to see all those over 30 soldiers and civilians coming and meeting and seeing us. And when I asked them, it's like, what do you think about the United States? They smile right away, and that is like, we see that as awesome memory.
Mm-hmm. There, unfortunately, I think it is the case that the support of the American people for the fight of Ukraine against Russia's illegal and terroristic war against the people of Ukraine, the American support is overwhelming. There have been a few cracks in that support, but I think the overwhelming majority of Americans are on the side of the Ukrainian people against this senseless, illegal war. And let us all hope that the war criminals from Vladimir Putin on down are held to account someday, one way or another.
As Ukrainian American, thank you again.
As I shared with you, I had the honor to go to Poland last year and helped with Ukrainian refugees, and actually visited Ukraine briefly for a few hours distributing food to people there. And I was so deeply inspired by their spirit and the bravery of the Ukrainian people. And we're down to our last few seconds. I just want to end with the slogan that I learned there, and I think you'll share it with me. May we end this interview saying, Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini.
Glory to Ukraine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yakov Gradinar of the Protez Foundation, for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.